One of the hardest things of beekeeping is not actually the beekeeping itself, but actually the smoker. And it's a case where a lot of times you're trying to use it and suddenly the smoker goes out. So one of the first things we actually do is get the smoker going. The smoker is going for at least 5 to 10 minutes before you put the suit on and getting the bees ready. And then by the time we're ready to get going, the bee smoke has been going for at least a few minutes and we really should be smoking quite nicely. So what we're going to do is just simply put some pine needles in the bottom. And we're trying to make sure there's a little hole down the side, so with the bellows. So the bellows coming out the back here and come out this way. So we're just trying to put some heat down the bottom. There we go. Notice I'm actually doing upwards because as we are all aware, heat rises. So I'm getting that heat in the bottom. This is nice and dry. So these pine needles have been, that's probably sitting in the barn for a while, on the back of the car, and making sure they're absolutely crisp, dry. If they're slightly damp, you're going to have a huge amount of problems. So the critical is just make sure that they are nice and crisp. The actual pine needle itself is interesting. Why the pine needle? What you're trying to produce is what's called a cold smoke. And not necessarily just a smoke, but it's a cold smoke. You don't need a huge amount of heat. But actually inside the pine needle is actually hollow. And that actually helps wickers and then produces oxygen to allow the actual pine needle to literally slowly burn away. But it's also critical when you're applying the actual pine needles. This is one area people get wrong, is if they have pine needles and they give them a lot of space, one burns out and it doesn't touch the other, eventually it'll go out because they're not touching each other. You need a chain reaction, so one pine needles on top of each other, it'll burn to the next pine needle, to the next pine needle, and so on. And when you do that, you're going to find you've got a continuous burn, and that is exactly what you're after. You see it's starting to come up now. And I'm just going to leave that for a few minutes now, and then top it up a bit more. But as you notice, I'll put actually the heat at the bottom. Once it's got the heat in the bottom, slowly that's going to burn upwards with the heat. And I've noticed that one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people do is they're keen to get actually that lid on top. Don't do that, leave it on top. If you got a little bit of a breeze, this can actually really help you. It draws the heat upwards, so the heat over the wind over the top creates a little bit of low vacuum and sucks the air through the bottom and upwards. So that really can help as well. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that open going for a little while, and then we get ready to go. Right, we're getting to the point now where the smoke is doing pretty well, so I'm just going to close this up now. And that's ready, going nicely. That's what we like.